Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Yesterday was a pretty big day for this franchise. We locked up the cornerstone of the defense for the foreseeable future and made sure that we're going to at least have an opportunity to get our money's worth for the trade we made to bring in said defensive cornerstone. So, obviously, right now, the fan base, we're all about the Jamal Adams stuff. And there's some stuff to talk about there, but there was a practice yesterday at the VMAC. There was another practice, and we're kind of at the point now where the stuff that happens at the VMAC is a little less interesting because we actually have games. We have games every week that we can watch and get some idea of where the team is. But I wanted to make a video to talk about some of the stuff that was said and some of the stuff that was done at the VMAC yesterday because the team is starting to come together a little bit in terms of who they're getting back off the injury report. And that's going to help us evaluate this team a little bit better against Denver this coming Saturday, I think. So let's go ahead and run it through. Obviously, one of the players who was practicing for the Seahawks who had not been practicing before was Jamal Adams. Apparently, he didn't do that much, which makes all the sense in the world. We don't really want him to do all that much, but yeah. Jamal Adams did practice a little bit today. Only a few snaps, which was actually apparently a little more than was expected. But yeah, Jamal is now taking part a little bit. According to Brady Henderson, we want to ease him back in after his long layoff. And there was some other good injury news as well. I want to cover this real quick. Rashad Penny practiced yesterday. Dwayne Eskridge practiced. Jamarco Jones practiced. And Robert Kemdichi practiced. So we are getting some guys back. And these are all guys who you could feasibly see play in the next preseason game and have it be valuable to this team. This isn't like somebody like a Geno Smith or a DK Metcalf or a Tyler Lockett who we kind of know what's up. These are guys we actually do want to kind of evaluate in the preseason. These are guys who their snaps in the preseason are valuable. So that's good news for sure. Carroll also filled us in a little bit on Colby Parkinson. And the news here is better than expected, although not amazing. We already kind of knew this, but Parkinson will not need surgery on his foot. It's the same kind of injury he had last year on his foot, but this time he will not need surgery, meaning that he has a chance to get back in a couple weeks. So maybe back for the opener. More than likely, I think he misses a couple games. If I had to guess, I'd say he misses a couple games. I tend to believe that Pete is being a little too optimistic on injuries most of the time. Sometimes it works out, but some of the time it doesn't. So if I had to guess, I'd say Colby's going to miss a game or two. And it should not be something that swings the needle for this team. Although it does kind of suck we won't get to see him in the preseason. As for another injury that's worth note is the one to Geno Smith. He had a concussion in the preseason game against the Raiders. He stayed home yesterday. He took a real hit that's still affecting him a bit. He wasn't here today. We left him home today, so he's still recovering. Unfortunately, he got popped really hard. So that doesn't sound overly encouraging in terms of him working his way back this week. I would assume that Geno will not play this week and possibly not the next week. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world because evaluating Geno Smith in the preseason is not really valuable. Alex Magoo is his reps are valuable because we're trying to kind of see what we have there. We already know what's going on with Geno. However, the issue is it's going to force us to keep extra quarterbacks on the roster because if we don't want to play Wilson in the preseason game, and we actually are teasing that we might play him a little bit in the preseason game, but if we don't, then you've got Alex Magoo, and that's it if you cut Sean Mannion, which I'm sure this team was intending to do yesterday. Or, well, actually, I guess the day before. but they couldn't because Geno got concussed. So you may see Mannion hang around until the final cuts right before the season starts. Not a huge deal, but it does mean that somebody who would otherwise have stuck around for another week will not. Very minor problem there, but it's something that does have a little bit of a ripple effect on the roster. So don't expect to see Geno Smith again for the rest of the preseason. That would be my evaluation of where he is right now. Other than that, Carroll also elaborated on the Dwayne Eskridge situation. They think he will be ready for the opener, and I want to kind of stress the use of that word, opener. That tells me that we're not going to play him in the preseason yet, or at least we're not going to play him in this upcoming game against the Broncos. So when he plays in the opener against Indy, he might be going in raw. He might have had no preseason experience going into that first game, which, it can work, but I would personally prefer if he could play at least a couple snaps in the last preseason game. So hopefully he gets to the point where he can do that. But it sounds like he was able to work through his injury and is now in a pretty good place. I saw him making some catches today in practice from Wilson, getting in a little bit of work, so that was promising. Carroll did say that Penny is expected to play in the next preseason game against Denver, so that's, I think, valuable. We don't know what we have with Penny at this point because it's been so long since he seriously got reps. He got like 10 carries last year. We didn't learn anything. It's been almost 2 years since he got real playing time. DJ Reed, also good news here. Probably not back this week. Probably not playing against the Broncos, but probably will play in the following preseason game. And DJ Reed's a veteran. He's been in the league a few years, but he's not the kind of guy who can necessarily miss the whole preseason and have everything be totally fine. So him getting a little bit of time in that week 3 preseason game would be of value. So sounds like we're going to get that. So that's pretty good. I definitely like to hear that. Some other injury updates from Carroll on the more negative side would be Marquise Blair has some soreness in his kneecap, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal. But with Blair, because he's, what happened last year with his leg, I don't like hearing anything going on there. So a little bit of soreness in kneecap. I didn't get any indication from Carroll on whether or not Blair could play this preseason game or if he'd guaranteed to be back before the opener or anything like that. Let's see here. There was also some word on Lockett. He's apparently been dealing with a groin injury, not been practicing the last few days. The team is taking it carefully with him. Cedric Ogbuehi is still out. So that's about it on the injury front. So a lot of good news. The Lockett thing is troubling because we just gave him a whole bunch of money. And the last thing we need is him limping around in the first few games of the season to kick off that extension that we gave him, because it kind of proves all the people who were down on that extension right off the bat. And, I was very conflicted on that Lockett extension, but this was definitely something in the back of my head that he might be getting older. He might be getting a little more injury prone, and it might be, the wrong time to give him that extension. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't like the groin injuries because those can stretch on much longer than you originally anticipated. And only time will tell. So that'll do it for this list of injury updates. There isn't a whole lot else to say about what's going on at VMAC right now other than going through who's going to play in the next game and who isn't. Cody Thompson is apparently still doing really well in practice. I have heard that. I did hear that Cody Thompson made some really nice catches from Wilson. He's making a push to potentially make this roster, and the task to do so is steep because he has a lot of good players in front of him. But Cody Thompson's definitely making a push at things. And yeah, I think that's going to go ahead and wrap up everything I can say in this video. Carroll and Adams both had a lot to say about the whole contract stuff, but it was all the stuff you would expect to hear. Carroll said Adams was very professional and he understood our position during the entire process. said, they were both trying to negotiate the best deal for their side, which is what you would expect to do in a situation like this. Jamal has every right to negotiate for as much money and as good a contract as he can get. The team has every right to negotiate the most favorable deal they can get. So you wouldn't expect Carroll to now come out and say that Jamal was being a jackass the whole time. Of course, doesn't really mean anything. But apparently Jamal Adams got pushed over the edge because his mom called him and told him to take the deal. Which, shout out to her. I guess it's few more hairs on my head that would not have been there had this dragged on a couple more weeks. So that's cool. And yeah, there was some talk about that whole contract back and forth, and Jamal said that he was never going to let it get to the point where he was going to miss games, which, again, I think kind of proves that the Seahawks had the leverage in this situation. That at the end of the day, all they had to do was hold fast, and Jamal was going to put ink to paper one way or the other. But it's over now, so that stuff is just kind of fun to read now. It's not really pertaining to anything other than maybe checking to see if there are any hard feelings over the seemingly intense negotiations, and it doesn't sound like there were. So I'm going to go and get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. Some players working their way back. We should be seeing some more players take the field against the Broncos, and hopefully we'll learn more. So see you guys later today. Peace out. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think down below.